This is the answer, lady, with help for people who are not pleased with their sock heels. Many times, no matter what we do, little holes seem to develop where the short rowing took place. I've been working on an easy way to close up those holes. Help me figure out if it's a great idea or not.
This is a pair of socks. This one has been finished and washed. This one is just off the loom. This is what we hope a sock heel made with short rows will look like. Nice shape, but no gaps or holes. This is what they often do look like. Of course, when I wash it, this will tighten up a little bit, but it's a feature of some looms and some yarns that when you do the wraps, even though they're meant to close the holes, you get little holes. So I've come up with a new technique. This and I should have said some looms and some machines, because the process of short rowing is identical on both machines and looms. This is the area where the wraps took place. And on this sock, I wrapped both short rowing in and short rowing out. And that means you have this obvious row of wraps on one side and this slightly more subtle row on the other side. This is what it looks like before the little chain stitch. There are two ways it can look. One is this way. This was automatic wrapped one way. Machine knitters will know what I'm talking about. And manually wrapped the other way to try to make it tight heel shaping. But I still got these loops and these loose spaces. And it's just, as I said, a hazard of some yarns. So here's what I'm trying. I'm using actually just a bare latch needle from a standard gauge machine. A latch tool with a handle would be more convenient, but this is what I have handy. I'm going to pick up the bottommost loop on the tool and then chain these loops together, sliding the tool forward, grabbing the next loop, pulling it back and through, on up through each one. And you can decide whether you want to do what I just did, which I've just decided is too tight, or only do what I'm about to do, catch the long strands. Where my thumb is pointing, skip that. At least that's what I'm going to do this time. We can experiment. And chain these together, going all the way up. I prefer to start at the heel, because the heel is the area that is most likely to irritate if this is not to your taste. Up above near the ankle, it probably won't be rubbing in a shoe, so most of us will be okay. Some of the strands don't look as long as others, so I give them a little tug. And at the very top, I wrapped across the beds or around the corner of the loom, so I've got to zig and zag a little bit. Here I am at the top. I'm going to slide that into the nearest stitch. I can use the point to help me like that. Now I'm just going to take a little spare piece of the same yarn, pull it through, but not all the way. Now I've got a loop of my spare yarn on the tool and the two ends in my hand. I'm going to release the ends and pull one of them through. It's not really a knot, it's pretty smooth, but it should secure it. And then in addition, I'm going to weave the tool in and out behind my chain stitch. The chain stitch being the loops that we just chained through one another. I'll grab my ends and pull it through. And this one was such a short little piece that I hardly have any to trim. Now, so far, in my experience, this has stayed neat. You can see it's pulling the fabric in a little bit, but it has fitted fine and been stretchy enough on me. We all have different foot shapes, though. We use different yarns. We have different stitching techniques. So I want you to give it a try and see what you think of it. This is something I'm not exactly recommending as the definite way to do it right now, because I've been doing it 10 years. Most of the things that I recommend, I know good and well they work. This is an experiment. It does create a very tidy heel, and I recommend that you try it with me and we all see what we think in a while. We've already seen how to chain together the one that only has one set of wraps. Now this has two, and we'll do this one. So far I have worked towards the ankle from the heel, thinking that when I weave in my securing piece of yarn, I'd rather it be up here than down here, but you may experiment. Find the very bottom loop and get it onto the hook. And now we're going to go left and right, picking up the wraps and chaining them together. Make sure you don't miss any, although honestly it's not a tragedy if you do. Try to keep picking them up from the same direction. But again, the public is not going to have its eyeballs in your shoes. So if you do not mind the feel of a twisted stitch here and you accidentally get one, there is no crisis. These are little teeny wraps that we're picking up, so they can be hard to see. Try to work with good light and work slowly. And you go back and forth, so this has a little bit of a herringbone look to it when you're done, whereas the version done where you only wrapped in one direction is a straighter row of chain stitches. Doesn't seem to matter. In theory, this one would be a little bit flatter than the other version. This one meaning I have twice as many loops, so I'm thinking the smaller stitches in the chain, you would think they would be flatter. In practice, I can't really tell much difference in look or feel when I'm done. But I have only used a few yarns so far. Let's see, where are you? There it is. Sometimes you do have to look. And there's no crisis, by the way. If I had made a mistake and I looked and saw that I had a loop down there, I could pull and release my chain like that down to the correct point. Find a loop that I still have intact and then start chaining back up. Okay, there, that yellow stitch, picking it up perfectly. And now this one, this one, this one. It's tedious, but generally the absolute maximum number of loops you would have is 24, so it's not as though it's going to take you all day. No crisis either way. At the top, it can be a little tricky to tell what you want to pick up. And what I say is just pick it up where it looks like it needs it. You can always let it back loose if you were totally, utterly wrong. All right. I need to get this loop on, and that is, in my opinion, my last one. Looks like we're good. Now, there's nothing already attached to the sock to allow me to secure it. So I'm going to grab the nearest stitch. So now I have my last loop in the chain plus the nearest stitch on my tool. And this is a little latch tool. A crochet hook will work as well. Push both through. Fold my piece of anchoring yarn. Pull it through both of the stitches on there once. Push it forward, now grab one leg and pull it through. It's not a true knot, but it's pretty secure and it's more comfortable than a true knot next to your foot. So now, to get that to disappear, technically you could just leave it alone because really nothing much is going to come of it. But I'm going to weave it through the chain. See, my chain stitches are all on there, and now I've pushed them through. I'm going to grab both ends of my anchoring yarn and pull. Now they're all woven in, and I'll just snip any excess. It's most unlikely to come out from there. but this one has twice as many little chains as the other one. There's one other difference where I anchored the final stitch. I've already woven in that extra piece of yarn, and here it is ready to be woven in on this one. So far, I've only worn socks made like this a few times, and they were perfectly comfortable. My concern was that this would make an uncomfortable spot, especially inside the shoes. So far, it hasn't bothered me, but if you choose to do it, you're part of an experiment. Now we'll compare the socks. The one on the top is the one that's been washed, and you can see that when the fabric lofts and shrinks, as it almost always does in sock yarns, these look tighter and harder to spot even than they do here. But we already have no holes at all. There's just no blurring from the lofting and fuzzing. So it looks to me like this is going to work. We still have to check out comfort. And remember, they don't look very different, but this one was done with, I think, 11 loops chained together, and this one with 22.